without further ado, I'd love to welcome the filmmakers of these films to the stage. All right. Well, I'd love to have you guys each introduce yourselves and tell us what film you're representing. And maybe as you're going down the line, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what came to you first. Did the subject matter come to you first? Did the protagonist or the character that you were centering come to you first? I imagine for After 8 it's a little bit different, but for the rest of your film, sort of curious what that starting point was. And yeah, we start there. Do you have a mic?
We're gonna share.
Oh, great.
Hey everyone, my name's Gavin Seal. I'm the director of Brotherly. It's inspired by a true story. So, is this on? Can you hear me? Yes and no. No, it's not on. Yes, you can hear me. Test. Listen, my name's Gavin Seal. I'm the director of Brotherly. The film was inspired by a true story. So I've been working on it for a number of years, but the seed of the idea was my brother, who was diagnosed with terminal mental illness, asked me to take him to Switzerland to be euthanized. And he's with us now, but essentially the seed was that question of like, what do I do in this situation? Like, what's the right thing to do? Do I respect his wishes and dignity and agency, or do I potentially rob him of that to impose my will onto him?
That was an amazing film, by the way.
It was a great program. Great job.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Thorns Roses. I co-directed and I was performing in Unfamily. That was the first film that you saw. It came about for multiple reasons. I have a lot of friends that are international students, and that was something. And something happened recently in 2023 where 700 students got deported and got a letter of deportation just because they had fraudulent documents as they were applying. So that inspired the story, and also some personal stuff, some family dynamics that you see in the film. I resonate with, so that's kind of the inspiration behind the film.
My name's Moss. I'm one of the directors on After 8. The topic kind of came around because Satpal was attacked in an Indian restaurant, and for those that don't know, curry is considered the #1 cuisine of Britain. And what's funny is they're called Indian restaurants, but most of them actually owned by Bengalis and Pakistanis. So my dad owned one, and he was hospitalised in an attack similar to Satpal's in the 80s. And I grew up working in those restaurants as well, and just being there, constantly speaking to the uncles and the granddads that were always telling me about what it was like during their time. And that sort of propelled me to looking deeper into these cases, and there were so many. And then we stumbled across Satpal's, and there was just so much there. A big campaign behind it, the racial climate in the 80s, and you see so many parallels from Satpal's case, the 80s and the 90s, to what you see now. So that's when I went out, done a lot of research, and then approached Usaid. And then 4 years later, I'm on let Usaid.
Well, I mean, when you ask the question, like how did you find the subject found me? But I just wanted to say thank you for having us at iSAFF, and we're really excited to be here in BC. And it's been an awesome festival, so thank you.
Yeah, that's a shout out.
Can I have a producer out here as well?
Yeah, please.
Yeah,
come on down. Let's give the producer a round of applause. What I'd love to ask next, and maybe I'll ask you also, how did you get involved with the project? You can introduce yourself, and then I'll ask him all about it.
Thank you. Hey guys, I'm Mitchell. One of the producers on Family. And Sid and I met in acting class. That's how we know each other. So when Sid, put the story together, we were hungry to make a short, and that was the one on the table. So that's how it came to me. And obviously, it's a world that I'm, I was new to at the time, I think, and learning about. But what really resonated for me was the family dynamics, and that was something that stood out a lot. So I found my own way to it in that way, which was really cool. So, is there anything else, or is that?
That's great. That's great. I'm going to come to you guys for questions next, but I'll ask one more. I'm always very curious about tone, and so I'm curious how you landed on the tone and the style for each of your films, and what that unlocked for the stories.
Can I borrow your mic?
Yes.
Tone and style. I guess I wanted to capture what it feels like to have a panic attack.
And you also used, you went back and forth in time, and so how that maybe, at what point did you know you were going to do that? How did that help the story?
I think the non-linear elements were in the script on the page. I would encourage everyone, the film will be released on CBC shortly, and then it'll be on my YouTube channel, and it's a director's cut that's actually 3 minutes longer with an epilogue. But I realized at the world premiere at Tesvier that the epilogue actually robbed the audience in this kind of platform where films are screened more in a playlist. It kind of completed the experience too much, and it didn't leave space for the other film. Anyway, so I cut the epilogue, and the film ended up much more successful in film festivals, but I'm very proud of the director's cut as well, which also moves into the future. And so, I wanted to capture what it's like to have a panic attack in that black box hospital space, and find that space between reflection, rumination, and fantasy, all those kind of liminal spaces, and I wanted to capture that in the tone and style. That the two aspect ratios, I felt like when people flash back, it's always 235 mil or whatever, but I feel like when I'm overwhelmed with sense memory, it's actually higher definition, and I'm overwhelmed by it. So that was a bit of an experiment that in terms of testing what that felt like.
Thank you.
Yeah, the tone, we wanted it to feel, funny enough, that there was a panic aspect to it, and we wanted it to feel very visceral, fast-paced to a certain degree, and also just like it all happened in one day. So that was a pretty important part. So we wanted to make sure that the styles were. It was something that we discussed a lot, because we shot it very it was kind of stylized to a certain degree, even though originally our vision was to kind of go with more of a documentary-esque vibe, which you see in one of the scenes when they're outside of the car. And we just had 2 shots of that, and the sun was setting. So we're okay, put the aria on your shoulder, and let's just run it back, and we did it twice. But it was something that we found along the way, to be honest, because we dabbled in 2 styles when we were in the living room scenes. And in the agency scenes, it was very, we were situated, and we wanted to let things play out, but certain moments were very fast-paced, and we just blended those, made it make sense in the edit room. I didn't want to add.
Just to color that balance, 2 of the big inspirations were Good Time, the fast-paced with that, and then The Master with Paul Thomas Anderson. I think our DP captured that a lot with the stillness of the film, and I think that was a really nice thing to be able to explore. And then just feeding in, I think, the fast pace and keeping it as tight as possible with the edit. That was a big part of it too, just cutting as much as we could, as much fluff as we could. It's still 18 minutes, but we tried.
We tried to cut it.
We tried.
Well, one of the things we struggled with was working with Sat Powell. The access there was quite difficult. He's someone that suffers with a lot of complex trauma, PTSD. That coupled with the Parkinson's gave us a lot of limitations to work with, because we would have loved him to have a bit more screen time, really. But with that, there's this humongous campaign with so many things that happened to him through the justice system, we kind of had a lot to clear through. So the editing style was very fast. Like, we just wanted to immerse you straight away and get you on that journey that Sapal went on over the last 2 decades, or those 2 decades of his life, whilst explaining and trying to take you on the journey of the campaigners as well, and everyone that was involved in his campaign, from the musicians to those inside with him. And for us to do that, it kind of required just a lot of pace, and to kind of labour some of that with the music elements and the sound. So yeah, that was kind of it, as well as immersing in Sapal today, and that's kind of a reflection of how far have we come since the 80s, because you're seeing cases like this now still, and he's still suffering the consequences of what happened to him that night in the restaurant, and that's through his Parkinson's. So when we cut, one of the moments that we really made distinct there is when we cut from Asian Dub Foundation playing the song straight to Sapal today, where he's suffering with his Parkinson's. And yeah, it was a sort of kind of like a way to interrogate that medium between time from the 80s to now. So yeah.
I won't add too much on the style, but just wanted to say rest in peace to Asata Shakur, who passed away, I think, last night. And she was a big inspiration to Sapal and many other political prisoners who read the works of these great people, and basically it kept them alive. So I think it's so important to kind of hold space for that. Yeah.
Sato actually sent Sapal a letter of solidarity when she was in Cuba, while Sapal was still incarcerated. So that's a fun fact.
Wow, yes. We have 5 minutes. Does anybody in the audience have a question? Oh, sorry. 5 minutes. Does anybody have a question? Otherwise, I can ask. Okay, I have 2 more questions. We'll see if we have time for them. The first is, it sounds like you all have a very personal story that sits behind, or I guess was part of the inspiration for each of these stories, and I'm curious, sort of, how that personal reckoning has evolved for each of you, and where you've sort of landed on the other side of making this film. What have you learned, or what are you feeling about the respective subject matters that your films tackled?
Why don't we go that way?
Yeah, that's it. Let's start at the end.
Wow, that's a big question. Honestly, I don't want it to be more relevant now than it. It's almost like I wish we'd made a document that was purely about history and about appreciating the work that people had done. But actually, it feels like such an important piece to be putting out into the world today. If it's with ICE in the US, or if it's in the UK, where there are literally hundreds of thousands of people coming out representing the far right, which we just cannot ignore. This racial tension and the violence that our communities have experienced in the past is continuing to this day. And I think, really, again, acknowledging the fact that there are so many Sapals in prison now, in the UK and in the US and elsewhere, there is something people can do. And I think ultimately, I hope that people see a film like this and think, okay, there was a huge campaign. There was people went to prisons to visit these people and actually express true solidarity on the outside. I think people can kind of be made to feel hidden away behind those big walls, but actually those walls can be brought down by collective solidarity. So that's really what I hope people to take away from this.
Beautiful. Maybe we can go to Unfamily next.
Sure, thank you.
We've got 1 minute.
1 minute. I got to play out some of the stuff that didn't even happen in real life, and I kind of wanted to just explore some family dynamics that kind of was just what am I going to do with this actually when it happens? How am I going to deal with this? And I got to explore that through the writing, and lots to learn as a filmmaker. I watch it again and I'm like, oh my God, I could do so much better now. But yeah, that's that.
I'll just say quickly, for me, what I find really interesting about this is, to your point, there's a lot of tension race relations, especially in Canada. You know, immigration is such a hot topic now. And it's interesting because I grew up in Canada. I was born and raised here. And, you know, Siddharth moved here from India. And so as co-founders of our production company working on what we're working on, it feels like we kind of represent two sides of this tension that we're seeing every day in Canada. And the hot conversations and the, you know, heavy topics come up sometimes in conversation with us, and it's really interesting to see. So to be producing a film about an international student struggling with deportation as somebody who was born and raised here, it feels like an interesting place to be, and it feels like a really good place to be, and it feels like after making a movie like that, I have a whole different perspective, and I hope and I think that like everybody that came to this movie from, you know, my family, my friends, people who know me and people who've grown up with me, they're also seeing a story that is quote unquote the other side and whatever that might mean. So I would hope that that kind of has somewhat of a positive impact in that way.
I don't need to say anything if we're out of time. Okay, I'll say something. I'll say something quick.
I'll allow it. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I want to say thank you for this program, Anisha. Great title, great concept, great programming booklet. Because I think what all the films had in common, and especially after 8, I was watching that and it's harrowing. But you do find the love in it, and so I guess what I'll say to kind of answer your question tangentially, but hopefully on behalf of like all the programs and the programming team in the festival, is like I know in acting, there's this idea that a character in any moment is either operating in a scene from a place of either fear or love. And I think when we're talking about this stuff, and you guys are here on a Friday afternoon watching some very heavy stuff, and a lot of it touches on fear. And so I think any moment that you can later today or moving forward, just choose love, tell someone you love them. Like, I hope you walk out of this theater with more courage to tell people that you love them, because I think that is how we heal and try to hopefully avoid making the same mistakes. So that's what.
Thank you. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. The last thing I'll say is follow all of these filmmakers, follow their films. I work in distribution, and I feel very strongly about starting to build followings for your, starting to create brands around your work. And so I'll encourage everybody to help these filmmakers out and to help these films out by following on social. Thank you. Mark.
Thanks for coming.